what time it is?
It's time for a max effort Monday. And whether you're in the car or at the office, it's time to give it your max effort, just like Bo and Blake. So, hey, don't let your family down like you did on vacation, right? Come on, get off your ass. And give it a max effort.
I'm ready to take this all the way.
I forgot about that return liner. Interesting. Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone ESPN, brought to you by the Ram Trucks at Mack Hike and Flowwood. We're also brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your car and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. How about that? Alabama's most talented, best quarterback in the history of their program is not going to win the national championship. You just never know. You don't. I mean, Greg McElroy and Jay Barker are going to go home with national championships. And Jake Coker. Did I get that right? I think that was right? Kid from Mobile.
Why you got to blindside these poor kids?
I'm not saying they're not good college players, but they're better than me, but they're not what we're talking about here. Bryce Young is not going to win a national championship, and yet the kid is, just a ridiculous talent. We welcome in our friend, national college football analyst with ESPN, who probably got back to Charlotte, North Carolina from Los Angeles in the Pac-12 After Dark Southern Cal game at about 11 a.m. yesterday. Tom Luginbill joins us on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Good morning, Tom Luginbill.
11 a.m. I wish I got home at 11 a.m. That would have been delightful.
What time did you get home?
About 2:30.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It was brutal. So we get home from the Coliseum. I had to call off of my radio show. We get home from the Coliseum. It is about 12 midnight, and my wake-up call was at 3:30 for a 6 a.m. flight. We're about 40 minutes from LAX. So do the math. Yesterday I got home, and my poor wife, she looked at me, and she could tell I wasn't in the greatest of spirits. And then I had an ESPN.com deadline that I was working on yesterday when all I wanted to do was I just wanted to lay on the sofa and do nothing.
Sure.
And so I got some action tomorrow night, so I got to get back on a plane today and go call some ball in the MAC, and then come back and prepare some more for our Saturday contest, and off we go.
Wow, you've got a MAC game. You're
2 weeks in a row. How about that?
You're hopping back on a plane today?
Yeah, today, and then I'll host Pac-12 radio tomorrow for 3 hours. Then go do that game. And then come back on Wednesday morning and do college football live that afternoon. And then Thursday morning, I have ACC radio for 3 hours before I go to Salt Lake City and see Utah.
Damn, Tom Luginbill.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those American Express travel miles will come in handy when Miss Luginbill wants to go to the Bahamas after
exactly
football
right.
season, okay?
And by the way, we could all be digging ditches.
That's right. Amen
Right?
to that. Amen
We're
to that.
sitting here talking ball and having a great time, and that's all that matters. We always got to keep that right. We've got to keep the main thing about the main thing, right?
Yes. So Bryce Young, here's what's crazy about sports. Bryce Young's amazing. But he's not going to win a national championship at Bama, and Stetson Bennett could walk out of Georgia with 2. How about that, Tom Luginbill?
Well, pretty simple answer to that question. It's not a question, but it's you're sitting there looking at it and you're going, wow, how can that be? Well, guess what? Alabama's been sloppier than Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, for example, you take a look, watch that game before our game. That's kind of the beauty sometimes of being on the West Coast, is you get to see a lot of the day play out. And I immediately went to team stats after that. And I looked at a couple of areas. Third down conversion rate on offense. LSU was better than Alabama. Turnovers. LSU was better than Alabama. Rush attempts. All right. LSU had more than Alabama. You've heard me talk about that before. So it all kind of aligned, right? I mean, that's why LSU won the game. Penalties. Alabama, more penalties than LSU. That's reared its ugly head all year long. And so you look at the national championship game a year ago, made more mistakes than the opponent did. I mean, Sometimes we overcomplicate this game, and even when you have a great football team, and you go on the road in a hostile environment, for all of the athletic gifts and all of the production and how impressive Bryce Young is, when you actually look at that first or second drive of the game and you see that ill-advised throw he made in the end zone, well, what was the difference in the game? 1 point, right?
Yeah.
If he just eats it, goes to the ground, they're coming away with at least 3, probably 7, and now all of a sudden we're talking about a different outcome. But guess what? He made a mistake, and he made a mistake that LSU didn't make, and it took points off the board. And so those things, man, they start to build, they start to compound, and it's tough to get over it.
And the reason why, Tom, is because Bryce Young knows he has to press, because he has to overcompensate for what they are not. What they were a couple years ago with Waddle and Devontae and da-da-da, but they're not that anymore, Tom.
Right.
And so he understands that he's got to do it. You know, look, some of these guys I'm referencing, I'm not taking shots at, but Mac Jones had different personnel, and so did Jake Coker.
Sure.
Tom,
sure.
They did.
Absolutely. Greg McElroy did too.
Yes.
And again, too, you also they were on teams that were making less mistakes. They were on teams that it was a little bit different in the sense that they were really pulling out and ahead of the rest of the pack of college football. And now we've seen college football kind of, play catch up a little bit. I mean, you look at Georgia and you look at LSU, you look at what Ole Miss has been able to accomplish. So it's, the level of competition, I think, is increased. I think it's become a more competitive landscape, if you will.
Yes. All right. So with what Kirby's doing, and now LSU has a real coach who will have elite talent. He didn't have it at Notre Dame. Not that elite. This is a little bit of a shift. Now, I'm not doing this for a hot take, Tom Luginbill, but
okay.
And I do believe that they can win it again before Saban heads out into the sunset. But the dynasty that we know from 2009 until through Mac Jones, the 2020 champion, that's over, because Georgia is here to stay. LSU is coming, and Ohio State's here, and then there will be another team. I just think it's a more difficult path than it was during that 12-week run. Am I crazy? What do you think?
No, I think you're 100%
12 years, excuse
correct. Me. Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. And listen, I think it's foolish for us to say, and you phrased it correctly, nobody's saying that the sky is falling in Tuscaloosa. Nobody's saying that all of a sudden this is going to be a mediocre program. We're not saying that. But it's very, very clear, and I don't want to say that the torch has been passed, but it's very clear that Georgia has become what we saw Alabama become in the last, 13 to 15 years. That is now happening in Athens. Right. And again, that's not to take away from the accomplishments of Alabama, but we've got to acknowledge that this wasn't going on forever.
Right.
And we get spoiled and we get conditioned to believe that this is going to be here forever and it's never going to go away and we're never going to struggle. And that's not reality. I mean, it's not how it works.
And Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN, he's on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Our proximity to T-Town, Tom, I mean, it's right here. It's 2.5 hours away. And over the last 15, 20 years, we've cultivated a lot of relationships. My dad went to the University of Alabama. And so here's what I was told Sunday by somebody who I trust. He said, here's what's going to happen. Saban didn't really go into it real hard. They're going to go into the portal. And he's going to go big game hunting because he has to. Not that the roster's bad. State and Ole Miss and Arkansas would sell their soul. But to get back where he wants to be, Tom, he is going to dive head first, along with his assistants, into the transfer portal to go after the elite players, in my opinion. What do you think?
If we assume that the players that they would be going after are head and shoulders better than what they already have. I think that's the thing that we've got to remember is for the vast majority, probably for 98% of college football rosters, when they're going into the transfer portal, there are players in that portal that are clearly better than what they currently have, right? But if you're in Alabama, if you're Clemson, if you're an Ohio State, if you're Georgia right now, if you're going to do that, it's not like you're going to bring in 15 guys. There's not 15 guys in the portal that are better than what you have. But there could be a Jameson
could
Williams,
be 3.
right? Yeah, there could be a Henry To'o, right? So I think they've done that, but I don't see them doing that with more than 2 to 5 guys in a class. I really don't, because you can't do it just for the sake of doing it if the player isn't an upgrade over what you have. And at a place like Alabama, there's not many of those guys out there. I'll tell you the one thing. I saw this was a quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was a quote from a former Alabama player, and I found it very, very interesting, because this was a fear that I had in all of this landscape for everybody as we started to move into this new world. And the quote, again, I'm paraphrasing, was, "I'll tell you what's wrong with Alabama. NIL. NIL is what's wrong with Alabama, because they've lost their edge and they've lost their hunger." And I started to think about that. And you know, the one thing that NIL can do is it creates and promotes individualism. And it creates and can promote a me type attitude. And what's the one thing that Nick Saban has been able to protect his roster from during his entire tenure at Alabama? It's that very thing. It's the team, the long-term outlook of things, the development for the NFL. If you just do what we preach and what we coach you to do over the course of your career, this is likely what is going to happen for you. And now we're in this different landscape where it's not necessarily about the team. I mean, and I thought, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case. I thought it was a very interesting statement by a former Alabama player that obviously has some concerns about, you know, the state of how this team is playing.
Well, they're not near as talented. The Scott Cochran, I mean, we did a whole show on this a couple of years ago. The legendary strength and conditioning coach that came out of the Tommy Moffitt deal at LSU, who joined Saban at Alabama and was there forever and super close to Kirby Smart. He left a few years ago and so on. And bottom line is his two coordinators are not good enough when it comes to offensive and defensive scoring efficiency. And at Alabama, that's quite frankly unacceptable. So I think Saban will make a move there too. But they're out of the college football playoff, and so is Clemson. So as you size this thing up, Tom, do you think – last year we thought we might have it because Ole Miss had an NFL QB who had mobility, all right? And the game just – it was 35-0 before I could even drink a Yuengling, all right? And it just didn't go as advertised. Now Bama goes to Ole Miss this year, and – you know, they're on the ropes. They're not playing for a college football playoff berth anymore. Do you think that Ole Miss, they couldn't do it last year, can they make this a four-quarter game in Oxford this weekend?
Based off of what we've seen to this point, the answer to that question should be yes. But I'll tell you, man, what Alabama somehow finds a way to do, we've talked about this before, when things don't go their way or they lose or they have a rough outing, this is what we're going to find out about this particular team is when there's not a college football playoff berth on the line, what is their grit? What is their give a crap quotient for the Citrus Bowl, right? What is and to get there, which means you'd have to win out the rest of the way, all right? But I think that's a concern. But I also think if you're Lane Kiffin, you're expecting Alabama's best because you worked for the guy that's leading Alabama, and that is not going to be an easy environment in Tuscaloosa this week.
Right.
And they still have superior players across the board. They have the superior quarterback. What you need to have happen if you're Ole Miss is you need Alabama to continue to be sloppy.
Yeah.
You know, you need Alabama to continue to have poor third down conversion rate and commit almost double-digit penalties every week. You need them to not be able to run the football effectively. I mean, those things have to come into play. So to answer your question, I think even if those things are a positive for Alabama, Ole Miss has improved enough to have that game at home and to be able to be in the game in the fourth quarter. Now, Jackson Dart can't turn the ball over 3 times.
No.
But I do think if both teams play well, absolutely, that's more than a fair assessment of how that game plays out.
All right, let's go to Georgia and what Kirby is doing, like you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What a defensive game plan by Kirby and Muschamp.
But actually, you know what? It was simple. Do you want to know why?
Tell me.
It was simple. They went into that game and essentially said, we have better players than you. We are not going to give you options defensively. You're going to see one thing from us, and it's going to be man-to-man defense, and it's going to be up in your face. And that offense, and it's a great college offense, but there's some run-and-shoot elements to the offense that are predicated upon defensive movement in the secondary after the ball has been snapped, right? So, we always hear about the RPO game, right? Run, pass, option. The operative word in the RPO game is option. Well, you're trying to give yourself an option based off of the leverage or the position of the defender. Where is he going? And then where he moves, we go the opposite direction. Well, the only way to take away the RPO game is to play man-to-man defense across the board, because now there is no option. The player isn't in a conflict of assignment. He's assigned to an individual man. You can't option him. All right, so that's number one. Most people don't have the talent to do that. Most people don't have the personnel to line up and not give up explosive plays. Georgia does. Secondly, on the outside, as you've watched Tennessee, how outstanding has Tennessee been this year when it's come to explosive vertical plays?
Good grief.
Right? Unbelievable. So what they do is it's all based upon leverage. So let's just say I'm the wide receiver coming off of the football, and I'm playing a corner. He's 6 to 7 yards off of me. And I come off the ball, and that corner jumps into an outside technique. That's telling me post-snap that I'm taking my route to the inside of him, and I'm going to use his leverage against him. All right, let's just say I come off the ball, and now we're going to go downfield, and that corner jumps inside. So where am I going to go? I'm going to go outside. I'm going to go vertical outside. So what Georgia did is Georgia just said, we're not giving you the two-way go. If you watch Keely Ringo and how he played Cedric Tillman, how he played Jalen Hyatt,
He's a freak.
They got head up, press man-to-man, and said, all right, Hendon Hooker, we're going to pressure you. Let's see if you can drop that ball in a bucket when your wide receiver is not running wide open. And it was as simple as that. That's what they did. We're better than you. We're going to play man. You can't RPO us. We're not going to give your outside target the two-way go. Let's see if you can beat us.
All right. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves, but sometimes it is what it is. Are they head and shoulders above anybody else, Tom?
Georgia?
Yeah.
Well, I think they are. I think they've kind of come out of the play down to the level of competition funk that they were in for the first 5 to 6 weeks of the season. They've kind of grown past that. They're not even necessarily play. They got Jalen Carter back, but they don't have Nolan Smith. So they're not playing with a full slate of personnel. I still think that we undervalue Stetson Bennett in terms of what he provides. I think anybody who wants to call him a game manager is sorely mistaken with that assessment of him. He's continually proven that to be an inaccurate evaluation of him. So I think that part is something that people got to reevaluate. I think Ohio State has some inconsistencies. Michigan cannot create explosive plays, nor are they very effective in the red area on offense. TCU does not have Georgia's roster.
No.
So we can eliminate that.
They get
murdered. That's the thing. So, to answer your question, if you really start to peel back the layers, they are better than head and shoulders better than everybody else.
All right, let's finish with Jimbo. They're a disaster. They're a disaster. I actually think they may consider the $87 million just because it's a rounding error in College Station. If he finishes 4-8, if they go to Auburn and lose this weekend, and we all believe that they will lose to LSU at home on Thanksgiving weekend, do you see a scenario where the influential boosters and/or Chancellor President make a move, Luke?
I don't. And if they did, it just goes to tell you that anybody who thinks that money matters is sorely mistaken when it comes to winning and losing. People will get desperate. They've got money to lose, and they're willing to do what it takes to correct the issue, no matter how much it's going to cost them. I don't think that they would do that. But this Auburn game, it's interesting you ask that question, and that's who the opponent is, because you know how difficult of a place that is to play.
Sure.
Right? And Auburn, aside from Texas A&M, has probably been the one team that's had as bad a quarterback issues and as bad a quarterback play as A&M has had. If Texas A&M were to lose to Auburn with their quarterback play, that's going to be a real problem. That's what I would be concerned about, because
here's something else, Tom. You know teams do this. The fact that Auburn's throwing their name in the hat for Lane and maybe Hugh Freeze, and they're going to make, you know this, they're going to make Lane say no. Whether he does, who knows. But
right.
I wonder if that makes A&M move if they lose to Auburn and LSU and finish 4-8.
I mean, anything's possible. And again, we're talking about big money power brokers with the largest university endowment in the country. If they want to, they can. If they want to, they can. I mean, I kind of, and I'm not making excuses for Jimbo, but like, what is it? Murphy's Law, anything bad can happen, will happen. I mean, they finally go out 2 weeks ago, and it looks like they find a quarterback, and then all of a sudden Saturday morning they have a flu outbreak, and 18 players can't go, and the quarterback's one of them.
Sure.
It's like, what are the odds, right? Like, what are the chances that happens? And that's the type of season that they've been having all year long, though. What can go wrong does.
Hugh Freeze. All right, we got to let you go, but Hugh Freeze, huge win over Arkansas. That may be enough to propel him, catapult him into a Power 5 job. Would you be surprised if Hugh Freeze is hired in the first week of December or second, whatever, at a Power 5 school, Tom?
No. I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be curious to know exactly what the layout of the contract he currently signed is, and what type of role that plays in other suitors that would be looking at, potentially looking at him. But no, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's been successful everywhere he's been, and he's turned things around quickly everywhere he's been. And I think if you're Auburn, that's what's most attractive about him, is he has a proven track record of quick turnaround.
If you had to bet $100, Kiffin or Freeze to Auburn?
Freeze.
Okay, cool. Have a great week, and I know the American Express points are going to be great for you and the crew.
Yeah, right?
Take care,
Thanks,
buddy.
Guys. Have a good weekend, man. See ya.
Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN on the Out of Bounds show. I feel like we have to – it's like rapid fire with him because I have him on Monday, and he does such a great job. But it's just like I want to get to 97 things with him.
Yeah, we
coming off the weekend.
We could take his whole Pac-12 show and just do a real show about SEC football.
Yeah, I could have Tom on for 2 hours on Monday.
Because you could do
and
an hour.
I could really walk through everything
yeah,
I want to.
an hour of recap and an hour of preview.
That's
easily.
Right. That's right. He thinks that Ole Miss has a shot to make that game a 4-quarter game in Oxford.
Line is stretched out to 11.5 in favor of the Tide overnight. So went from about 7.5 to 11.5 in 24 hours. So still money coming in on the Crimson Tide. They haven't lost 3 regular season games since 2010. Yeah. It's the last time they lost 2 regular season games.
Incredible. What a run by Saban. Magical. Unbelievable. And by the way, that's a 2:30 CBS kick, Blake, in Oxford, for Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson. So, and that game is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your car and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. It is an Armchair QB Monday. We'll have the High School Player of the Week brought to you by Bank Plus at 9:15.